So in the previous video, which was uploaded quite a long time back, we discussed the span of a set of vectors, and we discussed what is meant by the spanning set of a vector space, and we ended our discussions in that video with a discussion on the minimal spanning set of a vector space, which is nothing but the basis by definition. And then we had also solved some numerical examples in that video. Now, moving on, we will just, before we move on to the next topic, we will work out maybe a couple of examples. So the first example is, let's say we have three vectors from R3, say 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, and 2, minus 5, 3. So these are vectors from R3. Now we have to find out whether these vectors are linearly independent. So we know that if the vectors are linearly independent, it is, or rather if they are linearly independent, yes, if they are linearly independent, we should not be able to linearly combine them the way I have written it here. This was explained in the previous video. We should not be able to linearly combine them the way it is put here and end up getting the zero vector. So that's what we mean. That's when we say that these vectors are linearly independent. So this relation, we must be able to do this only with alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha 3 as 0. Otherwise, we should not be able to do this. And when that happens, this becomes a linearly independent, a set of linearly independent vectors. That is vector 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, and 2, minus 5, 3. These vectors become linearly independent if we are not able to solve this equation with non-zero values for alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha 3. So let's find out whether these vectors are linearly independent or dependent. Now we can write this, the equation that I have here, the relation that I have here, we can write it in the form of a matrix equation, a matrix multiplying a vector, the result becoming 0. We can express it like this. So you can see that 4, 2, 3, the first vector is here, 2, 3, 1 is here, and 2, minus 5, 3 is here. And if you perform this multiplication, you can see that alpha 1 into this plus alpha 2 into this vector plus alpha 3 into this vector, the result will be 0. So we have to see whether it is possible to find out a non-zero values for alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, all three of them, or rather at least one of them should have a non-zero value, such that this equation is satisfied. And if that happens, then these vectors are not linearly independent. On the other hand, if we see that only for alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, 0, this equation is satisfied, then these set of vectors are independent. So in general, we can write this as matrix M where matrix M is this, vector alpha, where vector alpha is made up of these scalars alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, is equal to the 0 vector, is equal to the 0 vector. And we know that it is possible to find a non-trivial solution here. It is possible to find a non-trivial solution here. Non-trivial solution in the sense a solution other than alpha being a 0 vector. That means a solution other than alpha 1, alpha 2 and alpha 3 being zeros. That is a trivial solution because it is as good as showing 0 is equal to 0. So a non-trivial solution is possible here only if the matrix M is singular, that is, it is not invertible. So if matrix M is not invertible, it is guaranteed that there is a non-trivial solution for this equation. That is, we can find a vector alpha which is non-zero and which satisfies this relation. In other words, we will be able to find values for alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 which satisfies this equation, and once it is satisfied, it means that these vectors are linearly dependent. So that means if this matrix in this present problem, this present example, if this matrix is invertible, or if this matrix is not invertible, that is, if it is singular, then there exists a non-trivial solution alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3 for which this relation is satisfied, which means if this matrix is singular, then these vectors are not linearly independent. This is something that we study in a different way in matrix theory. So now the task is to find whether this matrix is singular or not. If it is singular, then these vectors are linearly dependent, and if it is not singular, that is, if it is invertible, then they are independent. So I repeat, if it is a singular matrix, then these vectors are dependent, and if it is invertible, then these vectors are independent. So let us calculate the determinant of this. So if you know that if the determinant is 0, the matrix is not invertible. So let's calculate the determinant. So I write the expression, I write the expression for calculating the determinant of this matrix, and I don't think I'll have to explain much because how to evaluate the determinant is something that you are supposed to know. And that becomes 9 plus 5, 14, minus 2, 6 plus 15, 21, plus 2, 2 minus 9, minus 7. That gives 4 into 14 is 56, minus 2 into 21 is 42, minus 2 into 7 is 14, which is 0, which means that this is a singular matrix. It is not invertible, which means that these three vectors are not independent, they are dependent. Now again, from the theory discussed in the previous video, we know that if a set of vectors are linearly dependent, then at least one of them can be expressed as a linear combination of the others. And it is indeed the case here. I will not work out the details, but I will show that it is so by showing that 3 by 2 into 2, 3, 1, 3 by 2 into 2, 3, 1, plus 1 by 2 into 2 minus 5, 3 is equal to, let's see what happens. 3 by 2 into 2 is 3, plus 1 by 2 into 2 is 1, so 3 plus 1 is 4. 3 by 2 into 3 is 9 by 2 plus minus 5 by 2. 9 by 2 plus minus 5 by 2 is 4 by 2, that is 2. And again 3 by 2 plus 3 by 2 is 3. And you can see that this is indeed this vector. So we have been able to linearly combine these two and get this vector, which definitely means that these are linearly dependent, and it is something that we saw a short while ago by forming a matrix wherein we stacked these vectors vertically and evaluated the determinant of that matrix. That determinant turned out to be 0, which helped us to find out or to arrive at the conclusion that these vectors are linearly dependent. Okay, we take up the next example now. We'll try to find out, we know that the set of all 2 cross 2 real matrices is a vector space because it satisfies all the conditions of vector space discussed in the previous videos, and I think we have seen this as an example there. So set of all 2 by 2 real matrices is a vector space, and we'll try to find out a basis for this. Again, I will write down the answer because it's quite obvious. The basis for the vector space comprised of the set of all 2 by 2 real matrices is this. This is the basis. Zero 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 1 0 0 1 0 1 0 0 0 and 0 1 0 0. So this is the basis for the vector space comprised by the set of all vector space defined by the set of all 2 by 2 real matrices. So one can see that alpha 1 into this plus alpha 2 into this plus alpha 3 into this plus alpha 4 into this gives us the matrix alpha 1 here. Of course, the order may not be the way you wanted it. Alpha 2 here, alpha 3 here, and alpha 4 here. And for different values of alpha 1, alpha 2, alpha 3, alpha 4, we can realize the 2 by 2 matrix of our choice. So it is showing that by linearly combining these 4 matrices, it is possible to realize any matrix in the any 2 by 2 matrix. So that's the next example that we want to discuss. Now we will now move on to the next topic, which is regarding the change of basis. The next topic is regarding the change of basis. Now the basis for a vector space is not unique. It need not be unique. So it is not that if you are given a vector space, the basis for that vector space, that is the minimal minimal spanning set of that vector space, is not unique, and that's by definition the basis. That is, the basis is not unique. For example, E1, vector E1 1 0 and vector E2 0 1, this is, as you know, a basis for R2. This is a basis for R2 because any two-dimensional real vector can be represented by a linear combination of these two. It is well known. Now also A1, I just arbitrarily calling it as A1, vector A1, which is 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2 and a2 vector a2, which is 1 by root 2 minus 1 by root 2. This is also, there is a1 and a2. This also forms a basis for R2, because it's possible to linearly combine these two and realize any vector in R2. Just as it is possible to linearly combine these two and realize any vector in R2, it is also possible to linearly combine these two and realize any vector in R2. Now, what we do is we will take one specific example and try to understand this further. So, what I do here is I will take a I will demonstrate it here. That is, to go further regarding the discussion on change of basis. That is, to go further with this discussion related to the change of basis. We have to. I feel it's better to discuss one simple example. Let's say that in R2, I have a vector as shown here. So I'm showing a vector here in R2. So I just write vector here. This is a vector. So it has a magnitude and a direction. So this is the vector that I'm talking about here. And on this sheet, on the same sheet that I'm considering as R2, I will show these two vectors, E1 and E2. I will show these two vectors on this sheet, and they will be E1 is 1, 0. So this will be E1. This will be E1. And E2 is 0, 1. So this will be E2. So this is E1 and this is E2. Now, this vector, by definition, so this is, we agreed that this is the basis. We agreed that this is the basis for R2, which means that this vector, which is a vector in R2, should be expressible as a linear combination of these two. And as you can see, 6 times E1 plus 4 times E2. If you do 6 times E1 plus 4 times E2 from very basic elementary high school level physics, if I may say, we know that 6 times E1 and 4 times E2 will give this vector. 6 times E1 is this, 4 times E2 is this, and by the law of addition of vectors, we will end up getting this vector. So I can write it down here. I can write it down here by saying that vector, because I'm calling this as just vector. Vector is equal to 6 times E1 plus 4 times E2, that is 6 E1, and E1, as you know, is 1, 0 plus 4 times E2 is 0, 1. The result is 6, 4. Now this 6, 4, that is the number of times you have magnified E1 and the number of times you have magnitude E2, that is number of times you have magnified E1 is 6 and number of times you have magnified E2 is 4. Now that is called as the coordinates of this vector as per this basis. So as per basis E1 and E2, the coordinates of our vector is 6, 4. This is the coordinate of the vector. And as per this basis E1, E2, this vector is expressed as 6, 4. Okay, now again in the same sheet I will represent, or I will show A1 and A2, vectors A1 and A2. So A1 is 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2. So I will approximate 1 by root 2 as 0.707 or something like very close to that. So A1, if I show here, this will be, this is 1, so 0.5, 0.707 somewhere here, and 0.7. So this will be roughly A1. This will be A1. And similarly, A2, 1 by root 2 minus 1 by root 2. A2 will be this. This is actually, it is perpendicular. So A2 will be this. A2 will be this. This is minus 1. Now, what we have to find out, that is, now we have changed the basis. We have changed the basis. So this exercise, in this exercise, actually this example, I took this example to, one thing is to demonstrate, of course, that the basis is not unique. The other thing is to find out what will be the coordinates of a vector when we change the basis from one to other. So we saw that when the basis was E1 and E2, the coordinates were 6 and 4. Now the question is, what will be the coordinates when the basis is changed to A1 and A2? So we have to now find out to what extent we have to magnify A1 and to what extent we have to magnify A2, so that when we add the magnified version of A1 and the magnified version of A2, you will end up getting the vector that is under consideration. So for that, to find out to what extent they have to be, it has to be magnified, that is A1 and A2 has to be magnified or amplified, that is its magnitude has to be increased, of course. To find out to what extent, we have to go through this procedure, which we will generalize later. So I will write vector. The vector is actually 6e1 plus 4e2. And when we change the basis, the vector should not change, because vector is a concept which is independent of the basis. The vector is there as it is. Depending on the basis, its coordinates change. That's all. So the vector should not change. So the vector 6e1 plus 4e2 should be the same as d1 a1 plus d2 a2. So d1 and d2 will be the new coordinates of the vector when we change the basis, and a1 and a2 of course are the new basis, a1 and a2 that we have. And I can now write this as 1 0 0 1. This is e1, this is e2, 6 4. So the vector is 1 0 0 1 6 4. So what I have done is I have converted this. This is actually 6 into 1 0 plus 4 into 0 1, that I have written in the form of a matrix. You can see that in the form of a matrix multiplying a vector, you will get 6 into 1 0 plus 4 into 0 1. That is the vector. This has to be equal to 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, that is vector a1, 1 by root 2 minus 1 by root 2. So this together form the new basis into d1, d2. So you can see d1 into a1 plus d2 into a2 has to be the vector. So d1 and d2 we have to find out such that the vector remains the same. So d1 and d2 is what we are struggling to find out. That's what we are trying to find out. And this d1 and d2, this relation, as you see, if you just multiply from this side with the inverse of this, you will get d1 and d2. So I can now write d1, d2, that is the coordinates of the vector as per the new basis is given by 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2, 1 by root 2 minus 1 by root 2 inverse 1 0 0 1 6 4. That means I have inverted this and I have multiplied it from this side. So inverse of this into this will give d1 d2. That's what is written here. Inverse of this into 1 0 0 1 is here into 6 4. And this matrix is its own inverse, as you can verify. This matrix is its own inverse, which means that when I multiply them, when I go through this multiplications, you can verify the result later. You will end up getting 10 by root 2 and 2 by root 2 or root 2. 2 by root 2 is root 2. That is approximately 7.07 and 1.41. So 7.07 and 1.41 are the coordinates of this vector in the new basis a1, a2. In the base, if the basis was e1, e2, the coordinates were 6, 4. But now that the basis has changed, the vector has not changed. The vector is still the same, but its coordinates is changed to 7.07 and 1.41 approximately. And if I have to be more precise, it is 10 by root 2 and 2 by root 2. So this means that alpha 1 has to be multiplied by 7.07. That means it has to be amplified, or its magnitude has to be increased 7.07 times. So roughly, this is I'm showing it roughly with my hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7.07, somewhere here. This is a very, very rough calculation, a very rough demonstration. 7.07 times a1 has to be, so when you multiply a1 with 7.07, you will end up getting this vector. And when you multiply this with 1.41, maybe something like this till here. And if you put these two together, you will get this vector, which sounds perfectly reasonable. Of course, this is due to the way, since it's a freehand sketch, that's why it looks slightly slanted, but actually it would have gone like this. So you can, even if I can show it with the scale, it would have gone this way. And it would have been a perfect rectangle. So that is what we mean by the basis being not unique. One can change the basis from one to the other. Now this concept I will generalize. It can be generalized in this way. So how to change the basis? Given one basis, how do we change the basis? So the general idea is like this. Let's say vector v is E into, say, C, vector C. So this is the vector. This matrix has the basis vectors stacked in it, just as we had E1, E2 like this in the previous example. This matrix has the basis vectors stacked in it, and this will have C1, C2 and so on. These will be the coordinates. These will be the coordinates of this vector as per this basis. Now, let's say we have changed the basis to F, in the sense we have changed the basis such that we can represent, we can put together those bases and form the matrix F. So now in this matrix F, this is the new basis. If I call this as the first basis, this is the new basis. In this, we have the new basis vectors stacked like this, and we have the matrix F. So vector does not change. The vector has to be this matrix, the matrix which is comprising of the new basis, into the new coordinate, which I will write like this. So new set of coordinates. These are the old set of coordinates and the new set of coordinates. These were the set of coordinates when the basis was this for this vector. This is the new set of coordinates when this is the basis for the same vector. And this is what we have to find out. And this can be easily done as we saw in the previous example. We write as E into C, which means that D, which we have to find out, is equal to F inverse into E to C. And this matrix we can call as matrix S, and there is a name for that. It is called as the transition matrix. It's called as the transition matrix. So whenever you have to find the new coordinates of a vector, all that you have to do is, you should be knowing its coordinates in a known basis. You should know its coordinates in a set of bases. Now if you want to change the basis to F, that is the basis defined by the matrix F, the columns of the matrix F, if you have to do that, you have to invert this F, multiply E, and then the result you multiply with C, you will get the new coordinates. And this matrix, as I said, is called as the transition matrix. So that's what I wanted to say about the change of basis and how actually we can get the coordinates of a vector when we change the basis from one to the other. In the next video, we will see some examples.